let's have a look at our fuel lift pump. Now, on our fuel lift pump, the early 135s had a glass bowl out the side around here. The later ones didn't, and this one doesn't. Now, the fuel comes in this arrow here, out there, and it uses a diaphragm pump to do it. Now, we'll just pop it in the vise there, just to hold it, that's all we're doing. We can pump the handle like that. The cam actually rubs on the back here and pumps the pump, or you can prime it like that when you need to bleed it. So what goes wrong with these? The valves come loose in the head, the diaphragm gets a hole in it and it leaks fuel into your engine sump with your oil. This one doesn't have a drain on it. I have seen with little drain holes and then a seal up here, but this doesn't seem to have that. It's a 5-bolt one. You can see the 5 screws here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How can we test whether it was working or not? Well, if we put a little inox in the inlet, we have an inlet that's chockers, so it's not actually coming out the outlet. Okay, it is there with them both blocked off. That's a good sign normally. You can hear the valve opening. And we're building up pressure there. Normally just filling that up, that should suck it through. It looks like it is, but I am going to put a new one on this tractor anyway, just because of what it's going to do for us. So, first thing we need to do is grab a file or a hacksaw or something like that and put a little witness mark on it. So a little witness mark for no other reason than to know how this housing was sitting on the bottom, how the top was sitting on the bottom. You can undo these 5 bolts here, and for different applications over the years you can actually turn that around 5 different ways. So, but anyway, this is just an exercise just to show you what may be in yours. Like I say, I can buy parts cheaply, and this is a part that I usually put on most tractors new. They do last well though. This would have been an AC brand originally, probably aftermarket now I'd suggest. And if you remember, when we took the fuel pump off, these were loose. There was a loose fuel line here. So, and I believe that's why we were sucking fuel or sucking air, and then from time to time the tractor had to be bled to get it to run properly. So we'll just undo these 5 screws here. You can buy kits for these. Like a kit, if you're a bit handy, is probably a good option. When you're looking at doing a kit, the things you should look at though are the threads good inside there. I'll take my hand out of the way so you can really get a focus properly. And see this valve here? That's crooked. That valve, actually both valves are a little bit crooked. If I find an O-ring pick, I should be able to show you. Right, these valves here should be peened in. You shouldn't be able to move them at all. And see, you can move that. So you should not be able to move that. See that valve? That's been joggling around in there. So when the diaphragm's been pumping up and down, that's been rattling back and forth, and that wears the housing quickly. This one here, which one's this one? That's the inlet, and this is the pressure, and this one here is on an angle that it shouldn't be on also. And it doesn't look like it's too tight in there. You can see these little marks. Where can I get it so you can see that? These little marks here, they're peen marks. Now, if you do buy a kit, the kit actually comes with new valves, usually, and you can get these valves out, except for when you have a camera looking at it. Then they don't want to come out. But you can get these valves out, and to replace the valves, you actually pull them out. And look, I'm going to get that out just because it's there. Now, I might need to hang on to it with something to get it out. But that valve comes out, there's a little seat in there, and you get a new fibre washer, and you put the valve in, one each way, and then you just grab a centre punch, and where these burrs are to hold them in, you actually just put 3 or 4 centre punch marks around to clamp them in. So that's quite worth doing. Now with the diaphragm, this has got a T-piece on it. Now if your sump's getting full of oil, full of diesel for no reason, it can easily be a hole in the lift pump here, in the fuel lift pump. You can see it's got a little bit of fuel up in there. But down inside there, where your plunger works, the pump, there's actually a little arm, and this one, yeah, actually this pump's not much good at all. You usually put the diaphragm in, then turn it, and that will lock it. There is some fuel lift pumps that actually have an eye there, like an eye in the needle, and you have to hook it down over. But normally that gets pulled up by the spring. The spring sits in here. Your diaphragm engages with that bar down the bottom, and you should be able to turn it 90 degrees and grab the collar down the bottom there. I'll try and get this one on just to show you. I'll hold it upside down to try and do it. That way the lever comes our way. There we go. And as your camshaft pumps, it pumps the diaphragm here, or as you bleed it, it does the same thing. So as the diaphragm comes down, with your inlet valve here, it actually draws the inlet valve here off its seat. That little washer there, it draws that off its seat, and it fills this cavity with diesel. Then when the diaphragm comes up again, because this valve here is facing the other way, the pressure from the diaphragm actually pushes and opens that valve and pops him out for you. Look, this one's not going to go back together again. The diaphragm doesn't seem bad. The valve's being loose in the housing. I don't like that. And like I say, I can buy them quite reasonably. And I still haven't. There we go. I'll go and grab that valve. And you can see the seat there now, where it sits. And that's your valve. It's got a tiny little hairspring. Oh, a tiny little spring up in the side, up inside there, just in here. And as you got a little flap on it. This is a rubber flap, and the spring pushes it back down against the seat. So it's a one-way valve. Now, to get that back in again, you remove any burrs here. You pop a socket down over the outside of that valve and push it down in as far as it'll go. Then you just centre punch 3 or 4 times to get it back to where it was. So, but look, that's it. That's how your fuel lift pump works. Retail for a lift pump is probably 60 Aussie dollars. A kit is low $20. So if time is nothing to you, it is worth putting a kit in if your housings are good. Another thing I haven't mentioned that you should be looking at is, over the years, people see the screws on the fuel lift pump and they just come around and go and nip them all up. But you have to check that it's flat across there. Because over time, because you're pulling an alloy housing down against the rubber diaphragm, all these surfaces get warm. And if we pop the diaphragm out again, you can check for air gaps between holes, and by setting this across those two there, you can actually see what gap is underneath them. There's a little line around there you've got to take into account, and that helps seal on the diaphragm. But yeah, look, they get pulled. They're only an alloy housing. They get pulled out of shape. This doesn't appear too bad, but if it was out of shape, you could get a piece of glass, a piece of fine sandpaper, and with figure 8s, you could actually machine that nice and true again. But like I say, in this case, we're going to put a new one on. So there you go. That's the lift pump. That's how it works. I can't show you how to put a kit in.